So, to continue the YPAC podcast at WEX Global, I'm here with Dragan Savic, who's the CEO of KWR and the Professor of Hydroinformatics at Exeter University.
Hi, Oliver. Thanks for inviting me.
At this year's conference, one of the themes is certainly digital transformation in the water industry, and it's a topic that's really picking up a lot of speed at the minute. What is your ideas? What are your thoughts on what digital transformation is?
Yeah, I've heard this from somebody else, so I will use their wisdom in this case, and I like it. It summarizes the basic idea, and I think digital transformation. Digital is about technology. Transformation is about people. How do we take advantage of data? How do we make rational decisions or support rational decision making in the water industry? How do we integrate various silos that we have in the industry or normal utility business? So that's where we are. And to be honest, I don't believe that we have a transformative kind of situation in the water industry. We're still going to deliver water through pipes, pumping, treatment, customer care, and everything else. But digital technology is an enabler to integrate various facets of utility. If you collect the data for water quality purposes, why can't we use that for calibration of network models? If you're developing models and we have smart meters or digital meters or DNA meters, why don't we integrate those into something that is online, that is more real-time than it is now? So that's where I am, I think, with digital transformation. I don't want to be taken over by the hype, in particular about artificial intelligence, because people are talking about artificial intelligence solving every problem on Earth. I think as one of the tools, it's great, but let's start from the fundamentals. Data, quality, ensuring the quality of data, ensuring that we're making decisions with the best available data. That's where I see the impact of digital transformation.
Certainly, I went on the visit yesterday to see the local digital twin here in Valencia. And one of the things that really lots of things that came over to me. And one was actually have a purpose when you're doing a digital twin. So they were very much looking at the hydraulics of the water system. Water quality for them was secondary and something they're going to develop in the future, but not yet. But they were using it very much as an operational and an asset management tool, which was great. But certainly from their point of view, it was a case of you've got to get a level, if you're using swan layers, getting the level 2 right, really understanding your uncertainty as well. Really understanding where your potential errors are going to creep in. I suppose that's where the errors creep into the models as well.
So fully agree with that. I think most utilities are in the same area. Hydraulics first, getting to know your systems better, and then moving on to water quality. I can give you an example of what online water quality measurements can do. So the company in case has been looking into different water quality sources coming into the system, tracing those and using online water quality sensors. And when they compare the models without those sensors and with the data from the sensors, they found out that they missed the peak by 24 hours. So it was happening at the same time of the day, but the wrong day. So, the hydraulics was okay, or they thought so, but only when they looked into water quality, they improved the hydraulics as well.
And that's it, working together, to be honest. I mean, what came across yesterday, which for the digital twin they haven't looked at yet is, yes, you can use source water quality to work out which is your more expensive source. But then you've also got to bring water resource into that as well. So you don't favour one particular source at one particular time, because otherwise you'll drain the source down and it becomes more and more expensive.
Exactly. I mean, that's where I think integration is very important, because, as I mentioned this morning, you have within a company people who worry about water resources, and they do water resources planning, and then you have people who manage treatment and who manage infrastructure. So if you just worry about water resources, you optimize water resources based on where you have water and where you have demand. But if you're looking at water quality, then you will prioritize those water resources based on the quality. If there are different costs on top of that, then you have another parameter to look into. So that's what I like about online modeling, but, looking at the system rather than individual components.
And to me, I think that's something that's coming over quite strongly, is that systematic approach. I was with Live Riga last week or the week before in Indianapolis, and he was very much talking about multivariate systems. It was something that came up, I think, with perceptive engineering probably about 8-9 years ago, looking at multivariate process modelling through a wastewater treatment works. I think we're extending beyond that into the wastewater system as a whole, network and treatment. But it's an approach I personally think was probably 5 or 10 years ahead of its time. And it was interesting with the conversation with Enrique this morning, how academia, that relationship between water company and academia, which KWR actually specialises in hugely, has got to be really strong, because yes, academia is looking at stuff probably future casting into 5-10 years time. And that's the importance I suppose it's the incremental innovation.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The focus of academia, and I've been there for over 25 years, is like 3, 5, 10 years ahead. So what are going to be the next tools of the next generation? Whereas in practice, we need solutions for now, 3-6 months ahead. And that's where KWR kind of works as an honest broker. We do some research ourselves, but we also bring academic research into the practice, and that's that practical application that makes a big difference to the industry. And that's why we have a collective research program in the Netherlands and in Flanders, because they see the advantages of pulling together and learning together, and also practical application side of things. That was my frustration at the university, that there is a lack of trust between the utilities and universities, because we look long term and they have to kind of work in 5-year chunks.
I suppose it's looking at the short-term operational versus the long-term asset management strategy. And almost never the twain shall meet, but short-term operational becomes long-term strategy eventually.
Yeah. If we are talking about the barriers for collaboration, academia and utilities, I would say also is that utility, whether correctly or incorrectly, they believe they'd rather work with organizations like consultants, because they have continuity with professors and researchers. They're there for 3-4 years and they move on and do something else. So I believe for everybody there is a position in that technology readiness level kind of.
Agreed, and it's bringing that all together. And I suppose in some ways, and this is a discussion we had a couple of months ago at the WWT Wastewater Conference, it's getting that supply chain model, almost getting the universities into that model, as a consultants, maybe as I don't know what, but something that I was quite passionate about and still am for quite a while was using the industry coming up with the applications that it needs, almost setting that challenge out. And we're seeing it with certain water companies in the UK. I think it needs to be more defined, but I've always said if the water companies almost come together collectively, they can create a market. And we did that at Wastewater 2020. It was a case of 3 or 4 water companies, supplier, sat around the table, and the water company saying, well, we need a level monitor for a sewer for 50 quid. And the supplier went, well, you can have it, but not for 50 quid. And it was the discussions going forth between the two parties and saying, well, realistically, it's going to be more like 200 quid. Well, what if we took the approach of instead of having 50,000 units, having 10? And you can almost see that starting to happen. And then using the industry groups that exist to facilitate the way that works. And it was interesting, but it's getting that application certainly for instrumentation and then going up from there, up the swan layers into what we traditionally call digital transformation or Water 4.0, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think you put a finger on it also in that case because it's developing relationships. In this case, providers and utilities, and in my case, it's research institute and consultants jointly working with utilities to deliver something together. Internationally, we work only with consultants. We don't go directly to a utility to offer our services or our contract research. We work with a consultant that requires this specialized kind of add-on to what they offer. And that works really
it's
well.
Fulfilling a skills gap, which is, to be honest, more and more now where the industry's talked about a skills gap, but how are you filling that gap, especially in the short term? And there's a lot of opportunity there, I suppose, for that skills gap to be filled, both practically and in terms of research and development.
Yeah, and I think there is also quite a lot need of sharing within the industry, within different companies or amongst themselves and organizing where they can talk to each other. And, we shouldn't make the same mistakes. We should be allowed to make new mistakes.
Yes.
Because we're not going to learn if we are repeating the same things.
I suppose that's competition versus collaboration in a way. In some ways, competition, especially in the UK, because it's a privatised industry, there has to be that element of competition. But actually, there also needs to be an encouraged collaboration. I suppose not just with the water companies, but with the research institutes. There's been quite a public thing from Ofwat saying there's £200 million of innovation funds. How that's going to be spent, no one really knows. But actually, that's in some ways, I suppose, innovation hubs or research and development hubs. The difference between innovation, research and development, you can argue till the cows come home, but I think that would be quite a novel and great way to bring, I suppose, the research and development that's needed back into the industry.
I couldn't agree more with that one. I can give you an example from the 1990s when that was EPSRC, the Research Council, and water utilities came together in the WISE program.
Yes.
Water Infrastructure Technology, if I remember correctly, WHITE program, and that was absolutely brilliant. That actually brought quite a few new players from the academia into working with the industry, and that was the big kind of kickstart for proper research, practically oriented research in the UK.
That's something where potentially the Innovation Fund could help and support.
Exactly.
Almost acts as a seed moving forward.
Yeah, talking to research council would be the right move. I mean, in the Netherlands, you have this collective research program that they're funding every year, and because it's collective, everybody gets more that they put in. They all have input in what is going to be researched and what is the current kind of trends and what are the long-term trends. And we're all learning throughout that process.
I must admit, I've visited end of last year, and I also visited a few years ago down to Leeuwarden in Holland, and I was very impressed when I went down to Leeuwarden. They had the whole, almost the educational development of children all the way sort of 6-7-year-olds all the way up to postgraduate. So that in the water industry, in water systems, and I think when you look at the work that KWR do, ICT do, the group down Leeuwarden do, and everything, and of course the University of Delft, I mean, it's no wonder that through people like Mark von Luchrest, that things like Nerida have come out, and Camora and everything, because there's that fundamental basis of education in the water industry in Holland. And for me, that's something marvellous and fantastic. It almost gives me goosebumps.
I think absolutely brilliant, the situation in the Netherlands in terms of how the research moves into practical application. Nerida is a good example, the work at TU Delft, and also practical application by consultant, Royal Haskoning, HTV. But also we have really good research base and very progressive industry in the UK. And there is, I think, lack of mechanisms to bring them together. I think there are a few projects. Is it
2065 being led by Sheffield?
By Sheffield, it was WISE, CDT, Water Information, Science and Engineering, Informatics, Science and Engineering at Exeter, Bristol, Cardiff and Bath. So there are really good developments there, and engagement with the industry is growing. So I certainly hope that the situation in the UK will get much better in the future, with of course kind of pushing more and more for innovation, for reduced leakage, and other side of innovation. I can see it happening. It's just finding the right mechanism for getting that innovation into practice is something that I'm still unsure. For example, how those 200 million are going to be managed.
So the next time we meet is going to be in Bilbao for the Digital Water Summit.
End of April.
And of course, there's the whole IWA Digital Water Programme. What excites you about the summit coming up?
It's B2B summit, so it's not your typical kind of academic conference, which, by the way, has its own advantages.
Of course it does.
But the key thing is that we're going to see the latest in the digital water technology applications offering by the supply chain, pilots and full-size implementation of those tools. That's what IWA wants us to do, to showcase what is happening so that their 8,000 members get a much wider picture of what is happening in the digital water world.
And I suppose it can come together for those who aren't necessarily au fait with the digital water industry, to learn the current state of the art. And then from there we can build upon that.
Well, I think the idea is also to bring those that are not traditionally working with the water, but they're in the digital area, so that we can learn from others, from
other industries,
gas manufacturing, and also to have people at different level of development curve of digital water, because there are people who need to learn, and those who can actually teach us something new.
And from that development perspective, I'm actually quite keen on the concept that digital water doesn't have to be complex. And one of the things I quite often present on is take literally the output from one flow meter and analyse what that output is not over short term but long term. And simply, digital water could be the output from one flow meter. So I know a lot of people may think that digital water is this highly complex system, but I suppose the point is it doesn't have to be.
Yes.
And that's the development curve.
Yes, and also that view that it has to be all-encompassing immediately, in the first step, actually stops people off.
Scares them,
stops them in embracing digital technology. If they think, I have to be, a digital twin, I have to develop this and that, and it will take a long time and lots of resources. No, small steps, baby steps. In order to develop and also because we're talking at the beginning, I mentioned digital technology and people transformation. Digital transformation is people, so we need to get people to embrace the technology, and that doesn't happen overnight.
It's walking before you can run, almost.
Yes.
Well, anyway, thank you very much, Dragan. It's been a fascinating podcast. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you for inviting me, Oliver.
And hopefully, and I definitely will see you at the Digital Water Summit next month.
Great, thank you. Look forward to it.
Take care and safe journey home.
Thank you.